Bear down, fam. Halas Hall just blew up, and I've got 3 bombshells that change the entire outlook for this franchise. Starting with Vita Vea. Yeah, Vita Vea requested a trade out of Tampa Bay, and Adam Schefter already confirmed it. But before you celebrate, I need to tell you why Ryan Poles is risking everything if he strikes out on this type of trade for a 3rd time. Meanwhile, in the receiver room, Luther Burden is generating the exact kind of hype that has historically crushed Bears rookies in year 2, and Rome Odunze finally broke his silence on that foot, with a quote that I'll break down in a minute to tell you, if it puts your mind at ease or not. And to close it out, Colston Loveland landed top 5 among tight ends league-wide, a huge number for a rookie season. But there's a name from the division still sitting above him on that list, and trust me, this one's going to sting. All of this connects into one conversation about exactly where this franchise stands right now. Bear down. Let's get into it. Okay, bro, this is what I have been waiting to hear all offseason. Not a full solution, but a real possibility. Vita Vea requested a trade out of Tampa Bay. Adam Schefter reported it on Monday, and that alone gives this real weight, because when Schefter talks trades, there's usually substance behind it. Before I get into whether the Bears should go after him, I need you to understand why this story hit me so hard. Because it brings us right back to something this channel has been documenting for multiple off-seasons now. The Chicago pass rush. According to an analysis that came out this week from Roundtable Sports, the Bears finished with 33 takeaways last season, the highest number in the entire league. That number is real, and it is impressive. But it is also the kind of number that hides problems underneath it. Because that same analysis points out that Chicago allowed the 6th most rushing yards per game in the whole NFL and finished 22nd in the league with only 35 sacks as a team. 35 sacks in an entire season. That is not a bad luck problem. That is a structural one. And look who led that weak category. Montez Sweat with 10 sacks. After him, Gervin Dexter with 6, Austin Booker with 4.5. And the 4th player on that list, listen to this, was cornerback C.J. Gardner-Johnson with 3 sacks. A defensive back being the 4th highest pressure producer on the entire roster. That is not a funny footnote, fam. That is a massive red flag about how thin this defensive line really is whenever Dayo Odeyingbo is not healthy. And here is where I have to be honest about something that has been bothering me for a while. The Bears did not do anything meaningful this offseason to fix this. We already know the story. They already lost the race for Max Crosby, who ended up signing elsewhere because Chicago could not get that deal closed. And ever since, the front office has basically been crossing its fingers with the group it already has. Then, Vita Vea shows up on the market, and suddenly there's a real option, not a hypothetical one, to reinforce that unit. Let us talk about who this player actually is, seriously. Vea, in his best season back in 2024, according to that same report, had 7 sacks, 42 total tackles, and 10 tackles for loss, earning his 2nd career Pro Bowl. He is a defensive tackle who can hold up against the run and also generate interior pressure, which is exactly what this team needs because, let us be honest, Chicago's interior pass rush production in 2025 was basically non-existent. Now the question everyone is asking, why would Tampa Bay let go of a player like this? And that is where you need to turn your skepticism on with me, because a player requesting a trade almost always comes with a story behind it. It could be money, it could be role, it could be friction with the coaching staff. It could simply be that he wants to play somewhere else before his career winds down. We do not have that detail yet, and until we do, this stays trade speculation, not a done deal. And here, fam, is where I need to drop the hardest critique of this whole segment, because this channel has been documenting Ryan Poles' pattern with medical trades, and I cannot ignore it, just because the new name sounds exciting. Look at the pattern. Dayo Odeyingbo arrived through a trade with expectations of being a key pass rush piece, and injuries kept limiting him constantly. Grady Jarrett arrived with a significant contract expecting him to anchor the interior line, and according to that same report from this week, he played only 14 games with just 4 starts, functioning more like a rotational piece than the anchor the team needed. 2 cases, the same pattern. Poles brings in talent with an injury history or a reduced role, pays a reasonable price in picks, and ends up with less production than he needed. I remember exactly where I was the day the Odeyingbo trade closed. I was driving, I got the notification, and I thought, finally, this is the piece we needed. And well, we all saw how that turned out. So forgive me if I am not jumping out of my seat for Vea just yet. I could be wrong, but if the Bears go after him without doing full medical diligence, without understanding exactly why Tampa Bay is willing to move him, and without a backup plan in case this turns into Jarrett number 3, this already burned me twice, and I do not want a 3rd time. That said, and I want to be fair here, the need is real. This defensive line cannot keep depending on Sweat carrying the whole load by himself. If Vea arrives healthy, if the price in picks is reasonable, and if Dennis Allen has a clear plan for how to use him inside his scheme, This could be exactly the piece this defense was missing to stop leaning so heavily on offense-generated takeaways and start generating consistent pressure on its own. My take. Track this one, bro, but with your eyes wide open. This is not the moment to repeat the same mistake a third time just because the name is exciting. And there is one more layer to this that I want you to consider, because it changes the entire timing of everything. Villa is still under contract with Tampa Bay, which means any real trade involves not just draft compensation, but also absorbing that salary inside Chicago's cap. Ryan Poles already brought in 2 players this offseason with sizable contracts expecting immediate production, and in both cases, the return fell below projection. So the question is not only whether Villa is good, because he is. The real question is whether the Bears have the cap room to absorb that contract without compromising the extensions coming up, starting with Caleb Williams next year. And here's the other angle almost nobody is talking about. Tampa Bay, as the team receiving the trade request, holds all the leverage. They are not obligated to move Villa before the October deadline, and the more teams that enter the conversation, the higher the price climbs. If the Bears jump in now, in the middle of training camp, they risk overpaying out of urgency. My advice, if anyone at Hollis Hall is listening, is to wait and see how this defensive line responds in the first 2 or 3 regular season games. If the interior pressure problem is still as visible as it was in 2025, then yes, move aggressively. But do not spend draft capital in July on something that patience in October could solve just as well. Okay, I needed that tactical breather because what is coming next actually has me genuinely excited about this offense. And I also need to close something that has been circling the community for the past few weeks. I am starting with Rome Odunze because we need to settle this before we talk about burden. About a month ago, Odunze dropped a phrase that set off alarms across the entire fan base. He said he was living a new normal with his foot after the stress fracture that cost him 5 games last season and limited him even in the playoffs. The phrase sounded permanent, chronic even, and people started wondering whether the receiver the Bears took with the 9th overall pick in the 2024 draft would have to play limited for the rest of his career. Well, this week, Odunze came out and clarified exactly that. And I will be honest, the way he explained it puts me at ease. He said he set a trap for himself with that phrase, that he did not articulate it well, and that all he meant is that he had an injury, and that is football. His foot, in his words, feels amazing, and he does not even think about it anymore. And look, offensive coordinator Press Taylor confirmed the exact same thing from the outside. He said Odunze is moving really well, and that if the player had not said anything, nobody probably would have even noticed anything different in the spring. Could I be wrong? Trusting this? It is possible. Foot injuries have a reputation for being tricky long-term, and it is something we should keep monitoring once real contact hits in the scrimmages. But for now, with what we have, the alarm turns off. Odunze enters this camp with no restrictions and with his confidence intact. And that takes me straight to Luther Burden, because the conversation around the Bears' receiver room this summer cannot happen without connecting these 2 players. Look at who is talking about Burden. Colston Loveland said back in May that Burden is the truth. Ben Johnson said in June that he is buying Luther Burden stock right now. And this week, Ryan Poles joined that chorus, saying that if there is one guy he is genuinely excited about, it is Burden, because of how much he has grown since the day he walked into the building. That is too many important people talking about the same player for it to be a coincidence, fam. And the numbers back up the hype. Burden closed his rookie season with 652 receiving yards. And here's the important part. Almost half of those yards came in his final 4 games of the regular season, followed by 3 catches in each of his 2 playoff games. That is a production curve going up, not flattening out. And the Bears trusted that growth enough that they felt comfortable sending DJ Moore to Buffalo, putting the full weight of the top receiver role on the combination of Odunze and Burden. Now, here comes the uncomfortable question that Patrick Finley raised in the Sun-Times, and I have to put it on the table for you, because it would be dishonest of me to ignore it just because the hype feels good. The jump from productive rookie receiver to reliable year 2 starter is treacherously hard, and this franchise's history at that exact position is brutal. Listen to these numbers. Going back to Harlan Hill, who had 1,124 yards as a rookie in 1954, he became the first of only 5 Bears rookie receivers ever to top 650 receiving yards. The other 4, Charlie Wade in 1974, Willie Gault in 1983, and Rome Odunze himself in 2024. And what happened to all 4 in year 2? Every single one of them saw their production drop. Hill went from 1,124 down to 789. Wade never caught another pass in the NFL. Gault dropped from 836 to 587. And Odunze, hampered by the fracture, dropped from 734 to 661. 100% of the standout rookie receivers in this franchise's history regressed in year 2. That is not a small detail I can just wave away because I like Luther Burden. And I still carry scars from watching Kevin White, a top 10 pick, barely play at all across 3 seasons because of injuries. So if someone in the comments tells me they are being cautious about Burden, I get it completely. That is not paranoia. That is experience. And it is not only a Bears problem. The same trend showed up across the whole league. Of the 5 2024 rookies who topped 650 receiving yards, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey, and Marvin Harrison Jr. all had fewer yards in their second season. Combined, those 4 lost more than 2,100 yards compared to their rookie year. This is a real league-wide trend, not some curse exclusive to Chicago. So why am I still optimistic anyway, even with that history working against him? Honestly, maybe I am seeing what I want to see, and I will tell you that with full honesty up front. But I really do think Burden's context is different from the historical cases. Press Taylor said something this week that genuinely convinced me. He said Burden is not thinking as much out there anymore, that he is not worried about where the quarterback is standing or his depth on a route, that he is simply playing. That is the exact language coordinators use when a receiver moves from processing the scheme in real time to executing it on complete instinct. And we already saw an example this week. He caught a simple out route and took off for more than 30 yards before anyone touched him. And my bet is that Burden does break that historical curse, not because the hype says so, but because Ben Johnson's offense is democratic enough that it does not depend on just one receiver. They will have real internal competition, from DeAndre Swift with almost 300 receiving yards last year to Colston Loveland leading the team with 713, and Cole Kmet adding 347 more. This is not a one-man offense. And in a system like that, the pressure of carrying the whole load alone, which is what sank players like Odunze in 2025, gets spread across multiple threats. Caleb Williams himself summed it up perfectly this week. He said that when Burden catches the ball, he is a problem for the defense, and that his job is simply to get it to him. And to close it out, something that gave me mixed feelings this week. CBS Sports put out its league-wide tight end ranking, and Colston Loveland landed at number 5. Number 5 in the entire NFL in his first full season. That is, objectively, an elite rookie campaign. 58 catches, 713 yards, 6 touchdowns. But here's the detail that is going to sting for any Bears fan. The tight end ranked above him at number 3 is Tucker Kraft of Green Bay. Yes, the Packers, the rival we have hated our whole lives. CBS explained their ranking by saying the question on Loveland is not about talent, it is about consistency. Whether he can sustain the level he showed in his final 4 games of the season, when he averaged close to 95 yards a game, including the playoffs, or whether that was just a late-season heater that does not repeat. And my honest opinion here, bro, is that ranking is defensible but conservative. Loveland has the catch radius, he has the soft hands, and he already proved he can raise his game when it matters most. If he sustains that closing stretch level across all 16 games in 2026, this ranking is going to age badly. And by next year, I would bet we are talking about him as a top 3 tight end, not top 5. But in the meantime, having a direct division rival ranked above our tight end in any national ranking is exactly the kind of fuel I need to keep watching every single Sunday with my fists clenched. And do not get me started on how many times I have yelled at my own living room watching a Green Bay tight end wreck us right when the game got interesting. That rivalry does not negotiate, no matter what the ranking says. And there is one more thing I want to add here, because it feels unfair to compare them on total yards alone without looking at scheme context. Kraft plays inside a Green Bay offense that has spent years building around the tight end as a top priority in the passing game. Loveland, on the other hand, walked into a first-year system under Ben Johnson, competing for targets against Odunze, against Burden, against Kmet, and against Swift. The fact that he still finished as the team leader in receiving yards inside that much internal competition for the ball tells me we have not seen his real ceiling yet. If Johnson decides in 2026 to design more plays specifically to exploit Loveland's catch radius in the red zone, that gap with Kraft can close fast. And that is exactly the conversation I want to have with you in December. That is everything I have for you today, fam. A possible real reinforcement for the pass rush if Poles does his homework right this time. A Rome Odunze who put our minds at ease about his foot. A Luther Burden about to break a historical curse for this franchise. And a Colston Loveland who is already top 5 in the league, even if he still has to take the throne away from a Packer. Day 2 of camp, and honestly, fam, you can already hear the usual anxiety in my voice. Every July, I promise myself I will wait for real games before I let myself get excited, and every July I end up right here, notebook full and heart racing over a Tuesday practice. I do not know about you, but this team has had me like this since the 2024 draft, and I am not going to apologize for it. Bear down, always. If this video gave you something, hit the like, subscribe, and tell me below. Do you trust Poles on this trade after Jarrett and Odingbo, or would you rather they sit tight? I rate every single one, I promise you that. See you in the next one.